Saturday night, obviously we have the much anticipated undisputed welterweight showdown. Who do you think's going to win?
Man, that I see people picking Crawford. I see people like easily picking Crawford. I see people easily picking Spence. And I truly believe it's one of them fights that it's a 50-50 fight all the way. I mean, it's going to be Crawford is strong. He's sharp. He's very smart. Spence is got the dog in him and comes in the fight, but he's fast and strong. I mean, I guess at this point, as a person not betting on it, and I'm told to pick a winner, I'm going to lean with Crawford in this one.
Okay, why?
I just think that the overall boxing, which is it's not a huge advantage for Crawford because Spence is that good, but I think that's going to come into play from the middle rounds on, and I think Spence is going to figure out Crawford's going to figure out what's working for him, and I see him making the adjustments and finding his rhythm. Round 6, 7. I think the first 6 rounds are going to be back and forth, and I could be wrong on that, but I think the first 6 it's going to be a close fight after 6, and I think whoever pulls away with the better strategy towards the end of the fight is going to be the one that pulls it out, and that's why I lean towards Crawford.
Do you think there'll be a knockout or a stoppage?
There could be. That's the hard thing about. That's why I hate betting boxing. That's why I hate. But the more and more how the sport is evolving, and that's another argument down the road. We don't see that as much anymore because the tactical ability of these fighters and the skill set of a lot of these fighters. I mean, when you get to this type caliber fights, you really don't see them that much. You see a very tactical fight where they're not leaving themselves to get caught. And on the flip side of that, when you have 2 elite guys like that, yes, anyone can be knocked out at any given time with the right punch. But I wouldn't bet that part of it, I'll tell you that. So,
yeah.
But my pick right now is I think Crawford pulls out a decision,
Okay. What do you make of the size difference? Because apparently, have you met either of them in person?
Yes. Yeah, they're both big 147 pounders. I think the only one bigger that I've ever met personally was Trinidad. But, these guys are pretty big. A lot of these guys are getting big, and I don't know how they make weight. Boots Ennis. I mean, I don't know how he does it. So
like, what do you think the size difference for Spence will play a part?
I don't think there's that big of a size difference. So, I mean, they're only about like an inch apart, maybe in height, if that. I'm not sure. Am I wrong on that? Or maybe
they're saying 2 inches. That's what they're saying. But, that's why I asked if you met him in person because you can get a better gauge for it.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say it. I mean, I haven't even seen the weigh-ins. Who's taller, Spence?
Spence is apparently, it's like he's 5'10" and Bud's 5'8", around.
I don't even think, but to be honest with you, I don't think I met him in person. But
how old?
But yeah, no, I don't. And we got to go back on that. Crawford's a strong guy too, naturally. I mean, he grew up, I believe, in a wrestling family. So you better believe them wrestlers are naturally strong. When you do that all the time. So I don't know how much that'll play a factor in it, and I don't know how much with the boxing ability of Crawford that he will allow that to play in it. And with Spence being a smart fighter too, I think he knows that, and I think he may not want to get too crazy.
Okay.
This is going to be one of the fights where conditioning is going to be a big part of it too. At this level and the nerves and just the level of this comp, whoever can conserve energy, they may want to do that too. That may be in the back of their mind. And when you get in there and you start wrestling and pushing around, it does take a lot out of you. I've went through it. Every little movement that you make does play a role as the later rounds approach.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah, a lot of people, size doesn't mean anything, right, unless you know how to use it correctly.
Yeah.
And Spence is a pressure fighter that, leans on and keeps coming forward. You know, could he bully Bud? Or do you think Bud's too slick with the boxing and the moving and has his own power to kind of make Spence respect him and not come forward all the time?
Here's a good measuring stick, and you can't always use this as a measuring stick, but if I think Crawford, for the most part, even better than Spence, neutralized Porter, roughhouse, get inside. And listen, Porter was, no matter who he fought, he was the king of getting in and roughhousing,
Yeah.
right? And a great fighter Porter was, and he fought everybody. My hat's off to him, and I hope he enjoys retirement. But if Crawford was able to kind of neutralize that a little bit, I mean, not to say Porter didn't get in and get to Crawford a little bit, but I think that Crawford could do that with Spence as well. You know what I mean? I know Spence is bigger than Porter, but Porter was a kid that was fighting at a high level in the amateurs at like 185 and above, and he was a football player. So
Yeah.
Porter's used to dealing and carrying heavy weight and dealing with much heavier guys.
Right.
So
Right.
Porter was a big part of his success was being very strong and overwhelming people. And Crawford was able to neutralize that. Now, Spence, on the other hand, he's obviously a very strong fighter. I think Crawford may have some fits with that? Possibly, because of the level that Spence is at. But I think that he'll be able to kind of figure that out. And listen, there's going to be some things that Spence figures out on Crawford throughout this fight. You know, the old saying with boxing, a chess match, So again, I go back to whoever could come up with a better strategy, game plan in the later rounds and pull away, I think is going to be the one that wins the fight.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I personally don't see a knockout happening. I think, the wills are so strong on both guys, and like you'll attest to this, right? I mean, what percentage of the chin is actually attributed to a guy's will?
Well, they've both been rocked before. But the chin is a big part of it. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, it's a lot of it. Yeah, fighters could get hurt by people who don't hit nowhere near as hard as me. Just use me for example. Miranda hit a lot harder than Jermaine Taylor overall. Now Jermaine could hit, but Jermaine wasn't really known to be a big power puncher. He wasn't a Kelly Pavlik, Triple G, type guy. I never got rocked by Miranda. I mean, his punches hurt, and I felt them, and he's by far the hardest puncher I ever faced. But I got dropped by Taylor, right? So, you just never know when it comes to that. It's always hard to go out the chin. Recovery is a big part of it, too. If you do get dropped, how fast can they recover? That all plays a role in this. And that's why I say, at this level, can a knockout? Absolutely. I mean, your brain can only absorb so much, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you get caught with a good shot by a guy like Crawford or a guy like Porter, you're going to go down, or you could get knocked out. But also at the same time, these guys are technically sound. I mean, their error room is very small. They don't make many errors, and they very seldom leave themselves open. It really ain't, and I'll get some heat. It's not like really the old days where a lot of guys' heads were over the front knees and over the front feet, and they were wailing and taking shots and blood and guts. These guys are tactical, and they're fast, and they close the gap fast, and they make their angles are very fast. They make these little subtle moves that are quick. And I think that's why there's not so many knockouts at the lighter weight classes at that level. When you get to heavyweight, a little different.
Right. I mean, do you think either one of those guys have that one punch, just knockout, sleep time power?
Oh, absolutely. They both could crack at for 147. I don't think to the level of Virgil Ortiz or Virgil Ortiz Jr. or Boots, but you better believe if they catch you with a clean shot, your legs are gonna walk out from underneath you.
Yeah, I mean, That's true. They could both. That's what makes this fight so exciting, right? Not only the fact that we don't know who's going to win, but either guy can stop either guy at any given moment.
Absolutely. I mean, there is nothing that says that either one of these guys come out in the first round after all the years in buildup of this fight, and and first, it is possible. You got it's not two uh, guys coming off the street putting gloves on and fighting, right? I mean, these are two highly trained, great professional fighters whose living is learning how to throw punches and hurt somebody, right?
Yeah.
There is nothing stopping this fight from ending early or somebody getting caught early on. But again, the odds are that this fight will probably go long or to a decision because of the defensive ability, the reaction time, the reflexes, and just how sharp these guys are.
Well, what do you think about the possibility of too much technical play and the fight being slightly boring because they're just both so technical and keeping, tentative?
I don't get bored with those fights. I've seen a lot. A lot of people thought Pacquiao Mayweather was boring. I didn't find it boring. I enjoy watching that. And if it is, it's the sweet science. That's what they call it. It's boxing. It's not knockout. If that's what these guys feel, because nobody knows until you get in there and you get hit. And even at my level, or not my level, I shouldn't say it like that. It sounds arrogant. At the level of the championship level, right? When you get in there, yeah, you watch all the video and you're like, oh yeah, this guy hit, he's known to hit hard. And even with all the experience and everything, until you get hit, it's different. Until you're in there and you actually feel the power of that guy, no matter how many fights you had, you don't know. And, Spence could get hit with a shot. Crawford could get hit with a good shot and say, oh shit, listen, here's my game plan now. This is what I got to watch on this. And they might be a little hesitant. Same time, I don't see it that way. Listen, boxing fans, if these guys even fully go all out and nobody gets hurt or knocked out, they may say it's a boring fight. Who knows?
Yeah.
I look for the tactical. I know these guys are two highly skilled, very good fighters that, have the skill set to make this a chess match. And I think that's going to be a big part of the fight too. I think definitely the early rounds.
Do you think either guy is a better technical fighter than the other?
I will give the slight edge there to Crawford. Listen, let's not get it twisted on Spence because he comes into fight, and brawl or put pressure sometimes. I don't mean that he can't box. We've seen Spence against very good opponents, be able to box. So, I have seen a lot of things floating around on social media about Spence not being as sharp as a boxer, and I just don't understand it. If you watch his fights, I think Spence is every bit as good. But again, if I had to pick a person who had better, I could slightly favor Crawford in that. A lot goes into that. Something as simple how Crawford is just able to switch from southpaw to orthodox, and vice versa, and how he looks good from both sides, and his punches look good, and his form and his balance. There's just a lot.
Right, and that's true. What about defense? Do you think one guy is more defensively sound than the other?
I don't see it because what's defense if Crawford for the most part is staying back and slipping punches, or if Spence is coming in and taking them off the shoulder and gloves, to I wouldn't say average boxing fans, but everybody's automatically going to assume Crawford got a better defense, right? But does he? No, he don't, because Spence is picking off shots coming in, and for what he's trying to do, or his style, it's working. He's getting in close and he's roughing you up and he's not taking any punishment. So
Right.
defense, and again, I've seen Spence stay on the outside and pick off shots and slip against good opponents.
Yes, but Spence's technical and defensive abilities, I think, are very much underplayed. I think he's strong in both. People just look at Spence sometimes as somebody who just barrels forward with hard, relentless shots,
Mhm.
which is what he is, but that's not all he is.
Yeah. No, Spence, if he's coming forward and doing that, it's because he knows something, right? He knows something with his opponent.
Right.
And if he's not doing it, it's because he knows something. Again, going back to it at that level, with the skill set, if they're fighting a certain way, something they've seen something or felt something, something that even a trainer can't pick up on. There's a lot of cases in boxing where trainers just don't know because they're not in there, right? Um, yeah, so sometimes, with Spence, that's why I can never just count on that or rely on watching something. If something's happening in a fight, it's usually because of a reason.
Right. Right. No, that's true. Well, I mean, it's going to be I'm excited to see it. We'll see what happens. I just, I hope. I get a little worried that they might be a little too technical, but either way, it's going to be the highest level of chess, even if it is just a chess match.
Yeah,
Um,
and people are getting to see it, and that's the big thing. And I think these guys both got a lot of dog in them. I think you will see a handful of times throughout the fight some brawling. I think you'll see some big blows traded. It's in their DNA as watching them fight, and we definitely know Spence likes to. And we've seen Crawford against Porter do it too. He didn't box the entire time, but he did. Like I said, he did a good job neutralizing him. But there were still scenarios where Porter got in and Crawford banged with him. So they both got it in them. I think it would happen, but I think overall it's going to, especially the early rounds, it's going to be a very tactical fight.